Aloha mai kako, and welcome to Inspired by Aloha, a podcast dedicated to making your day a little brighter by showcasing that inspirational people and acts of aloha surround us every day. My name is Shareen.
And I'm Erin.
And I'm Amy.
And we're so grateful that you've chosen to spend a few minutes with us as we get ready to be
Inspired by Aloha.
Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to welcome an inspired educator to our podcast. Yay! And
we're so excited. We're already cheering.
I know. And I am so lucky because I've known this person all my life. And she is aloha to me and is an inspiration to many, many people. She's my mom, Margaret Bailey. Welcome.
Hello.
Now, it's true that I've known you, Margaret Bailey, all my life, but really you had a full and amazing life way before I even came along, before I was even a spark in your eye. So start off by telling us, what was it like growing up for you?
Growing up, I remember having very loving and caring parents and very strict dad. My mom did not drive, so she was a home mom. She made sure that she always was thankful for those individuals who helped to, pick us up or take us to events, as she did not drive. My dad was the one at home and at work. With him, it was always work. Mm. And so he always believed that when we had friends over, that in spite of the fact that we were spending time with them, that when they left, we still had to do our work. Mm-hmm. And so with that, it was, very strict. I mean, these are the things that need to be done, and you need to get it done. Whereas mom was always very supportive and made sure that you got your homework done, and she always helped you, even with book reports. And
wow.
Yeah, so she was the home person that provided the meals and took care of everything at the home front.
Mm-hmm. And how many siblings did you have?
We had 5 girls and 1 boy.
Mm-hmm. Were you on Oahu?
Yes. Actually, we grew up in Kailua on one of the main streets there in Oniava. Right on the corner, my grandmother had her place, and we owned property that was an L shape around her. Mm. And so we were there right at the front when we had parades in Kailua. I remember that. And then also they used to spray for mosquitoes because there was the swamp there.
That's right.
And then you hear stories now, but at that time it actually happened where children were running behind the spray truck. And which is not good for their health.
My mom used to do that. So they used to run after the DDT truck.
Right. But now they're realizing that it's not really good for your health. So, yeah.
So after Kailua, then you folks moved?
Yes, just as they completed the highway into Kailua, because prior to that we used to drive the old Poly Road. Wow. Which was kind of fun, but it was windy and just one lane going in either direction. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful drive, and it was nice going around the windy part at the top of the road to Kailua. But then they changed it, and they built that nice highway that you have now. Mm-hmm. So just as they completed that, we moved to Waianae. Mm.
Wow.
Wait, what year was that, Mrs. Bailey?
Wow.
That's a big...
And that was in 1952, I think.
And you've been there ever since?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes, I lived in Waianae, went to the university from there, and then I met my husband, and he was living in Maile at the time, and so we are still in Waianae.
Mm-hmm. So what were the schools that you went to, like for elementary and middle school?
Okay, elementary went to Kailua, and because we lived so close to the school, I could hear the bell ring, the first bell in the morning, and we were doing our chores like hanging laundry, and I could run to school and get there by the time the second bell rang.
Oh, he was fast.
Yeah. And then we moved to Waianae, and then I went to, it was Waianae Elementary and Intermediate, and that went up through grade 10. And after that, we had to go to Waipahu High School because there was no high school and out in that area. So my father actually drove us, or my girlfriend's dad dropped us on the way to drop off his produce at River Street. So we used to get up early in the morning and either go with him, or my dad used to drop us off when he went to work at Pearl Harbor.
Well, yeah, because that's still quite a drive from Waianae to Waipahu High
Yes,
School.
yes. And so the year after I graduated, that was the first graduating class at Waianae High School.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So that was just grades 11 and 12.
So growing up in Waianae, and I know Grandma and Grandpa, they were really attached to the land too. So what kind of chores and things did you have to do as a child before you went to school in Waianae?
During the day, there was always something to do outside in the yard. One of the things that we used to do, because we needed to keep up with the weeds, was, and this was not only in Waianae, but we had a place in Pupukea. So we used to go on the weekends, like on a Friday, and that was a night that we were planning to go out, but we would go or on a Saturday night rather, and we would have to weed. And so we have all this large area that has to be weeded. And so each one of us would take, like maybe 3 feet of that, and you would weed. That's your responsibility, and you weed all the way to the other end. And
Oh, that's good teamwork. Yeah, like, come on, everybody want to go out. That's why.
right, and that was the thing. You have to hurry so you can get home, and then you can go out.
That's good incentive. That's terrific.
Yes. So
And was it a farmland in Waianae?
in Waianae, we had about 2 acres, so it was like we used to raise cantaloupe. And one of the things that you had to do with the cantaloupe was make sure that you cover it because the fruit flies sting it. But then you had the rats to compete with because they go underneath and they find all the sweetest fruit, and then of course they're eating from the bottom, and so you go to pick it up and it's just the shell there. But
Sneaky.
yes,
Sneaky.
so we used to raise things, and we had animals as well. So we used to have pigs, and we used to have rabbits, and we used to have chickens. So I would go into the chicken coop and watch them lay their eggs, and then I raised bunnies, and I mated them, and I had bunnies every month, and so
Keep population going.
yes. And it got to the point when my dad said, give them a rest. But I was like in maybe 6th grade, and I thought, hey, this is pretty neat. I can get bunnies every month. So, but yes, that was a learning process.
Wow. That's cute.
Do you consider yourself a farm girl?
Well, I am, and I am not. So, yeah, I still do, I guess with plants and, but now I do indoor farming because we have a microgreen farm at our school, and so you could raise those microgreens in your kitchen. So that's
Wow.
So that,
Yummy.
and then I just keep my orchid plants outside, and whatever other.
Green thumb.
Yeah.
I did not inherit a green thumb.
Oh,
It's
Yeah.
quite brown.
I was gonna say like a brown thumb.
I mean, I kill succulents. That's,
oh,
that's sad.
Hey, I do that too.
So now you said that you went to the university.
Correct.
And then what did you study at the university?
I studied home economics education, and also I went into counseling.
And what inspired you to go into that field? Was it because of the way that you were brought up and raised, or what inspired you to go?
I guess after moving to Waianae, I was really fortunate, and I was part of Girl Scouting, and I was part of 4-H, and I had, adults that were really caring and supportive and took the time to like either pick you up or drop you off, because again, grandma didn't drive and daddy was at work. And so through that process of being in those groups and having these individuals sort of as mentors, and then also in school, I don't see it as much now, but at that time we used to really bond with our teachers. And so we used to stay after school and, do things with the teachers. And so I had several great teachers, even into my adult life. One of them, when I started teaching, he had a pikaki farm out in Hawaii Kai area, and he made leis for me and delivered it to the school, which was like, wow. So we were more like friends for a long time. It was my math teacher, and then I had a home economics teacher, and that's probably what really kind of encouraged me to go into that field, besides the 4-H background.
What made you decide to go to the University of Hawaii at Manoa?
Well, for one thing, we really couldn't afford to be going to the mainland, and so I was in 4-H, and so Baron Goto, that was in charge of the department. I think at that time it was under agriculture. He was really watching after he just kind of followed, whatever I did. And it came one day, it was a surprise because he actually submitted an application for me to get a scholarship. And so I received a scholarship, and I really was very grateful for it, but it helped. And we worked in the pineapple cannery to earn money for the tuition. So it just made more sense for us to stay here in Hawaii.
I'm curious, kind of like, cannery. What was your job at the cannery?
I was a packer.
Oh.
So, so you determine what is, the best pine, and then you have to sort it out, and then you have zillions of them coming down if you're not fast enough. But that was an experience because you have to get up early in the morning and you go with your friend to the cannery, and then in the afternoon you come home and you're smelling pineapple.
I remember my sister used to work at Dole Cannery too, and she would come down with like burns or like from the juice, and she'd always smell so good. I love pineapple. It always smells so good.
I think some of the jobs they were getting more of the burns than others. With our job, it wasn't that bad because you're just twisting the pineapples this way. The other one is where they're trimming, so all the juices would go down their arms.
You were higher level.
My grandma was a trimmer for 18 years.
Oh wow!
Oh,
yeah. And
she must have had a lot of burns.
And then my brother was a pineapple trimmer as a high school job. I said, next gen, And then I got out of working at the cannery.
They kind of stopped right before us. Sorry.
And so my brother would be like, how come you're not working at the cannery? And Mom said, Amy got a different job. That's so good.
But in high school, I worked a summer program, as a junior leader, and I did the cannery. And then when I was in college, I worked for Singer down on Bishop Street. And so we used to teach people how to use the sewing machine and sew, and so that was kind of fun. And an offshoot of that is when I started teaching, Penny's offered this competition for home economics teachers. And so a group of us went to Penny's and we selected our fabric and our pattern, and then we had to go into the store on several weekends and sew the garments. And then they had a competition, and the prizes were both monetary and a sewing machine.
Wow.
So I sewed Shareen a bonnet and Holly Hobby outfit.
Holly
hubby.
It was
And
so detailed.
I
So
still
nice.
have it.
Oh my gosh.
And I won first prize.
Wow.
So, but the first prize was $75 at the time, and the second was a sewing machine. And I would have rather had the money because I already had a sewing machine. And my husband suggested maybe I open up a sewing school, and I said, no, I don't think so. So what I did was to offer the sewing machine to one of my students for a really low price. I mean, like, I think I sold it for $25 or something. So, yeah. So that was great. And then, of course, I worked at Liberty House, or now Macy's, in gift wrapping.
Oh, that's right.
3 things that I always wanted to do was glass cutting. And my husband said no, because you'll have all the glass pieces all over the place. And I thought gift wrapping would be great because it's fun and you have these beautiful packages and people are always happy. And the other thing was to be a bartender. Yeah.
And of course. Did you ever do that?
No.
Oh, it's never too late.
Next family party, you can be it.
So he said no to that. So I went into gift wrapping. So, yeah.
And you still to this day wrap gifts beautifully.
Beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and you've passed that on to Shareen.
Yeah, I'm a gift bag person.
I am. You don't even get wrapping
I know.
present.
Yeah, you just get the present. And
But she comes back to me for bows.
She's the best bow maker.
Yes.
Actually, you're so creative, Mrs. Bailey. Very creative.
Thank you.
So good.
I try.
Well, what are the values that have guided you through this time? I guess we were talking about grandma and grandpa and some words of wisdom that they gave to you or left with you.
With grandma, it was always, if you're going to do something, you need to do it right the first time. And if it was grandpa, it was always, you have to think of the next person. I guess they were brought up that way too. But grandma always believed, if you're going to do something, don't waste your time. You need to make sure you do it right the first time. So that was always important because it does certainly save time and energy if you think about it and do it. And in the classroom too, I was just sharing with Shareen this morning that I went into Tamura's, and it just happens that my brother goes in there often, and this one former student of mine that works in there knew him just as a customer. And so I went in there and I saw him. So I said, oh, this is my brother. And she said, the first thing out of her mouth wasn't hi or, she didn't know that. She just said, she was really strict, but you learned. So, I mean, that was nice to know.
But you've impacted so many lives. I mean, so many students through you were at Nanakuli, and then you're still working now. So how many years? It's been
60.
60 years in education.
Wow. So tell us about that journey then.
Right. Where did you start?
Finished the university, and then...
And then I started at Nani Kapono Elementary, and that became Nanakuli Elementary and Intermediate. And then we moved up the hill, and then it became Nanakuli Intermediate and High, and now it's called Nanakuli High and Intermediate. We were right on Farrington Highway, and that is Nanakuli Elementary now. But we moved from the beach side all the way up to the mountains, where we are located now.
Yeah, because Nanakuli High is all the way in the valley.
Yeah, it's beautiful
up there.
Right.
So how many years were you teaching in Nanakuli?
50.
50 years.
It's 50 years at the same school.
Yeah. And you started as what? What were the positions that you...
I started off as a home economics teacher. Also, I taught social studies. And then I moved up to the high school, and I was in home economics and guidance. And then I went into counseling. And so I became when I left there, I was their college counselor. And then I moved on to ARA as Director of College Counseling, and currently I am responsible for student learning and teacher development.
Wow.
So I have both director and the administrator. But we are a small school, and so we do take on multiple roles.
I remember your time as the college and career counselor at Nanakuli, and I can only imagine the thousands of students that you've mentored over the years. And I think what was always most impressive to me was that you knew what every senior was going to do, whether they were going to go military or go work or go college, that you knew what everyone's plan was and helped them to prepare for that plan, whatever it may be. And I thought that was so much effort. You know, so whenever you called to ask for assistance with mock interviews or whatever, oh yes, of course, you know, we always said yes. So if you're to think about your journey in mentoring all these students, what was your philosophy through that in your role? And I guess that role carries over to today, but what is the driving philosophy for you?
I think you just want to make sure that you can provide them with whatever knowledge or skills that they need in order to be successful in their transition, whether it's to career or to college. And of course, at Nanakuli, they have many challenges. I remember when I first started teaching there, we were going to be doing a sewing project. And of course, the students couldn't afford to buy the fabric. And so what I would do is just go and buy a whole bolt of fabric and then just sell it to them for like 50 cents a yard or whatever. So at least they felt like they purchased it. But I think no matter what their decision is beyond high school, it's trying to provide them with at least a heads up, being prepared, and today it's really difficult out there. I mean, because there are so many challenges. Right now, at ARA, the graduation requirement is that they have to pass my class. If they pass their other classes but don't pass this senior internship, they're not allowed to graduate. And part of that is that this course is a way to evaluate how well they have achieved what the school has determined to be their students' learner outcomes, whether it's being a principled citizen or technologically literate or a critical thinker. We need to have them demonstrate at this point before they exit that they have in fact been able to achieve these goals that we have for them. And part of that is to help them with this is they need to complete a 40-hour internship. And it doesn't include the research part. It's actually the hands-on. And so there is a process that they have to go through, and then they have to do the internship, and then there are things that they do after that as well. But throughout that process, they need to be practicing their research, their communication skills, their writing skills, because they need to keep a log, and you know, they have to write papers. And so once they get through that, they find that it was very helpful, very beneficial, and even the parents see the value in it. But getting them through that process.
Right.
Getting your letters of recommendation that you can use, you know, when you get out, and completing your resume. And
Yeah, right, because we didn't, I mean, I never had a class that helped us write resumes when we were in high school. You know, so that's a great thing and a great skill to recognize that students need that.
And then having the support by, you know, our partners like the hotels, because we had career fairs there. And one of the events that we had there, I thought was just really outstanding, when you had all the departments represented there. And then we had the students go and find departments based on whatever their requirements were. It was like a scavenger hunt. I remember. And they really had fun doing that, but they learned a lot. And just having the participation of the industry out there, it really brings to life that whole experience because you can talk to them. But because my philosophy is that the world is your classroom, and you can, no matter what it is around you, you can always find some way of incorporating into your instruction. And so having them exposed to or have an opportunity to participate in events such as this, and be able to actually meet real people like yourself, that you're a human being, that you don't bite, it makes them more at ease and relaxed about really pursuing more information or experiences in that field.
Right. So for the student, it's realizing that something working at a hotel or working in a retail area is achievable when they meet people in the industry. As an educator, in your time at Nanakuli, it was your effort that made these programs happen, right? I mean, nobody coordinated all of this for you, so you had to go out and meet people.
And get funds, like we raised money through Foodland. They had all those competitions, and we used to get computers for a while. One of the programs, I was earning computers for the library for a number of years until I finally asked, can I use the money this year for my program? So,
wow.
Right. I'm at a private school right now, and our enrollment is like 104, and that's the K to 12. Whereas at Nanakuli, the enrollment was much larger, and my largest graduating class was 175, which is small compared to other schools that have like 500 in their class.
Yeah.
At American Renaissance Academy, though, because it's a small school, some of the expectations that are going to help you to be successful is that you have to be a team player, and you have to be willing to take on more roles than just in the classroom. And so that's why, when I moved to American Renaissance Academy, it was different than being at a public school. And in the public school today, they have so many challenges to deal with, their behavior, plus everything that's piled onto their plate by, the district and by the state and by the federal. But at American Renaissance Academy, you are treated as a professional. So they hire you as a teacher, and they accept the fact that you are a professional and that you're going to be doing your job. And so there's no one, except for myself, of course, that checks on them. But
Someone has to, right?
But they are just expected to do their jobs.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you have ideas that you want to incorporate, they're always open and willing. And it is a small school environment where it's more like a family. Since I've been there, I started the Founders Day, because I really felt that it was important for these individuals to really learn more about the persons or individuals that were responsible for providing them with that experience or that opportunity to attend an academic institution. And then, of course, I did the spelling bee, and every year we have musical production, and so I do their souvenir books for them every year, which is kind of fun, and it allows me to use my creative skills in creating. But there are a number of things that are going on, like the fundraisers. The school went on their first trip to the neighbor island, and we did that about 3 years ago to the Big Island. We're looking forward to starting it up again next year. So I'm looking at either Maui or Kauai, because the last trip we took to the volcano area. But we'll see.
Wow. Mrs. Bailey, it's such an honor to be with an educator who has been in the business for 60 years or over 60 years. Like you mentioned earlier, it can be very challenging to be an educator, to be a teacher, to be in the school system. What was it that kept you motivated to stay in this field for over half a century and to keep going. And your passion today seems unwavering and just as intense as it was when you first started. So what kind of advice would you give to other teachers to stay inspired and stay motivated in this field?
That's an interesting question, because I said, if you're in it for the money, this is not where you want to be, because teachers actually put back much of what they earn into the classroom just to make it work, because you just don't have enough funding in the budget. If you are you really need to have your 8 to 10 hours of beauty sleep, this is not the field for you. If you want just to work 8 to 5 and then that's it, this is not the field for you as well. But I think just small things that happen, knowing that you have students that recognize what you are teaching is valuable to them, and that is going to help them in their life beyond high school, or just things that they say that remind you that that person didn't appear to be listening in class, but evidently he was, because he is able to recall that and give it back to me, years later. And those are just, you can't really measure. It's just a feeling that you get. Because that one class, I remember it was about 10 years after I was into teaching, and I had this feeling that I've never had before. It was just like a high, because the responses that I got from the students that I had been working with, because they realized that those things that I had taught them were really going to help them and were really important to them. And it was things like, doing your taxes and doing your checkbook, and it's just things that you need in order to survive out there. And then I mentioned to Shareen that years later I ran into one of my students, and she said, I still do my taxes today because I learned it in your class. And I thought, I said, but it's just, things like that. And like that person, that student in the store that told my brother, she was strict, but we learned. And so that kind of makes me feel better about what I was doing. And it wasn't always perfect, but, you always try to do your best, and it's only when they get out there and you see that they are successful that you feel really great.
Can we stay right on that topic from your time at Nanakuli, because you had all different types of students at Nanakuli, and some with really challenging personal backgrounds or home lives. And can you share with us what is one of your most favorite student stories?
One that comes to mind right away is of this one student, and they came from, I'm not sure where, Vietnam but they came to the United States, and it was a challenge for them. I guess they came to the United States and then they ended up in our area, and what they had to go through in order to get money to pay for their meals and also for their education, and how, although she was an excellent student, what she went through in order to stay at that level, it meant like reading in front of car lights or outside of McDonald's. And so that's why in Nanakuli they used to have a lot of these families that used to go to McDonald's, and of course some of the patrons were not very happy with that, but the McDonald's really supported them and allowed them to be in their establishment, because they knew that they didn't have any place else to do their work, their homework. And it was they were doing their schoolwork. So, and then of course after that, they went off to wherever they were staying, whether it was in a car or, on the beach somewhere. And we do have a big homeless population on our side of the island. But, and she graduated with high honors. But they had to be very determined to get that education and to be in a better place than where they were. And I think that's what, some of these kids, that's the way they manage to get out of where they are, because they want a better life for themselves and their families. And my applaud to those companies and restaurants that recognize that they can be a part of the success of these children by no fault of theirs, that they end up in this situation. So
Wow. But I think about the encouragement that she had to have received from you as her teacher, to not be discouraged.
it was really, when they were doing they would do their resumes, I would always tell them, do not put things in there. They don't have to put things in there that are going to be really hurtful for them. And some of them they would start really in tears because of some of their experiences, or even when they're doing their personal letter, I would say more so than the resume. But some of the experiences were so bad that just thinking about it would bring tears to their eyes. Would be tears to my eyes. But, I would tell them that if it's really to that point, that maybe they shouldn't include it in there. And sometimes these companies and organizations like the Lions or, Rotary Club, they'll pick it up because there was a student that was applying for this scholarship, and she had to go to the Pacific Club. And so I said, okay, so I'll come by and pick you up in the morning. And I said, I'll take you there. And so I went by to pick her up, and she was not ready. And so I had to get her out of bed, and she got ready. She had been up most of the night because she had to take care of, her brothers and sisters, because her parents hadn't come home. And so she got ready, and on the way, because she hadn't had breakfast, we stopped and got her something. And then when I dropped her off, I said, make sure you take off all your crumbs. You don't want that. And so she got in there, and then sometimes it is all the time, because Shareen's gone through this. It's intimidating when you have these adults and you're a high school and they're going to interview you. They don't have a friendly face like Amy, But so she went in, and of course she was nervous, and then they finally got her, a little calmer, and they asked how she got there, and she told them that I had driven her there, and so they said that because she had her counselor drive her to the interview, that there must be something special about this individual. And so then they started to question her more, and eventually she got the scholarship. But it was just some of these things that they pick up on, that this student is not maybe able to talk for themselves, but there is something that we need to find out more about. And so I was really grateful that they were able to do that, because she really needed the scholarship.
Wow. And those are the people that you really hope will get scholarship and help. Oh, that's a good story. Wow. So. Oh, my eyes are teary.
I know. And that's just, and she's my mom, right? She's my mom. But she's also mom and mentor and friend and coach to so many other people besides just us, me, my brothers, my family. And so whoever has had that experience to be a part of or touched by Margaret Bailey and had her caring and her commitment to helping them rise up from wherever they've been or whatever they've done to be successful and achieve things is just such a fortunate place to be, and just a blessing for sure.
I think what I observe is that you look at each of your students as individuals and you want to hear their stories, and they all have such rich stories and backgrounds and experiences to share, and I've seen you cultivate that, so that they all know what their gifts are and they can offer it moving forward. If you think about it, think of all the lives that have been touched in Nanakuli, you know, for 50 years through Nanakuli High School. That's a lot of people.
I'm like,
That's a lot of people that
50
you
years
touched.
like, I mean, you must still go to places and run into students that recognize you, right? And you don't recognize them. It's like 20 years later, right?
Right. No, but it's their parents. So it's their parents now. So it's their children. And so when I was there, I had their children, grandchildren. Yeah.
Oh, multiple
Wow.
generations.
Right. The parents,
Right.
the children,
That
and the
is
grandchildren.
Right,
absolutely.
because one of the students that I had before, she was also working as custodian or maintenance or something, and she said she told her grandchild that used to be my teacher.
Oh wow, that's so amazing. Well, this podcast is inspired by Aloha. So, thinking about the value of Aloha, how do you feel that you have perpetuated that value of Aloha throughout all of your career and all of the other organizations and activities that you're involved with?
Well, I was thinking about that, and I asked my husband what his thoughts are and how he felt about Aloha. And he said, well, it depends on the situation. And so I said, in my case, doing things and giving from the heart, always doing things in a caring manner and giving from your heart without any expectation in return. And so he said, well, that's you. Because he felt that, I'm generous and, caring, but for him, I guess it depended on the situation and how you react in those individuals. But I think in my case, it's just no matter what I do, going back to what my mom said, is that you have to do it right the first time. And so it's just doing it the way you would like to be treated and putting, 100% into whatever you do.
And I think you had mentioned, Grandpa, too, about just leaving it better than, leaving it better for the next person, right? That was he said.
Right.
So as you go through your career and everything that you do is always done thinking about leaving it better. You leave it better for the students, for the parents, for the schools, for the community, in general. That's just who you are and the legacy that you carry with you.
And
Wow.
thank you. But again, I mentioned that I want to leave things better than when I first arrived. And at the point where I no longer can do that or contribute, then that's the time to really retire. So, yeah.
But your legacy will live on. I mean,
Right.
it always does.
Absolutely.
You're not at Nanakula anymore, but still, they talk about Mrs. Bailey. And then you may not be at ERA, but they're going to talk about Mrs. Bailey and all the fun things and the creative things that you've done and put in place for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel so inspired. Right? Like, I mean, I've changed my career to education now, and now I feel like, oh, I think I got to do more. I know. Now I've been inspired by Mrs. Bailey again.
I think that's the key. You can always do something more. And that's what people always educators need to remember, that there's always something more that you can do. You can always learn more, you can always share more, you can always improve things, but you're never finished. There's always more out there that you can do to make this a better world. So
Right? So you're going to work for another 50 years because
well,
is that right? Because there's always going to be.
We may retire before Mrs. Margaret Bailey retires.
There's still time.
Well, when you're doing what you love, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You don't feel that it's a job. I mean, it's a job, but like you said earlier, you don't do it for pay. You don't do it for the 8 to 5 or if you want 8 to 10 hours of sleep. I laughed when you said that. I'm like, yeah. When the students say, "Oh, I stayed up so late," I said, "So did I." Right? Like you think it's easy for me to do all this for you, right? So yeah.
but you also have to have that support, and so I feel so grateful for having my husband support me Because even when they were younger, I could still go to conferences. I could still attend, activities, because either I had my mom and my dad to take care of them, or I had my husband that, is behind me right now too. He understands, and so he said, it makes her happy. She enjoys it, so I let her do it, whatever. So.
Yeah,
That's great.
Mr. Bailey, he's wonderful.
I think that's one thing I noticed at the last fundraiser that you did, is that everyone in your family is very proud of you. You can just see it from your husband to your children, your colleagues. You've been very impactve, and so and everyone's grateful for that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you are an
It's like,
inspiration.
that's my mom.
That's right.
Yeah.
You are an inspiration, and you do exude that aloha. And that is you. So thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
so
we're
much
so
for being
honored.
here.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
honored. I think every teacher that will hopefully listen to our podcast will be inspired, and I hope that people are inspired by the message that you shared today. So yes,
we
Thank
are.
you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bailey. We love you.
Thank you so much. Any last parting words you'd like to say?
We need teachers. We need really caring, committed educators. Our young people need you. So if you feel that this is something that you can do, then go for it.
Nice. Love it.
Excellent.
Well, thank you, Mrs.
Excellent.
Bailey, for being with us today. Thank you, Shareen, for sharing your mom with us. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And
Be inspired.
be inspired by Aloha.
Absolutely.
Mahalo mapono.
Mahalo mapono. Ahui ho.
Ahoyo.